Dave Isaac, Courier Post. You might be able to help us out with that. We'll get Dave's take on that season as we're flashing back to some of the best seasons, and we'll also take a look at the prospect camp winding down yesterday, and he's got a lot of great pieces up right now at Dave G. Isaac on Twitter. Scott Lawton signs a 2-year deal yesterday. We'll get his role on the team. David, what's happening, my man?
Not much. How are you?
Yeah, we're doing good. Middle of the summer, taking a little flashback to some of the best teams in the last 20 years. That 09-10 Flyers team, I don't know if it was the best team they had, but it certainly went the furthest. And if you could just kind of give us a couple of things. I don't know if you were on the full-time beat at that time, but some of the things about that team that kind of stood out.
Yeah, that was the year before I came onto the beat full-time, but that was kind of a scrappy team that found its way there. If you remember, Peter Laviolette takes over mid-season for John Stevens, and you just mentioned the merry-go-round there with goalies. I think Carter Hutton was one of the guys that got on the roster there, although I don't recall if he played or not. But it was really between Leighton and Bush, yeah, and one seemed to get hurt, the other one was healthy. So many things happened in there. And, I was talking about that season the other day, and in particular, Leighton. We're not even talking about Michael Leighton if Jeff Carter can hit a wide-open net with, whatever it was, 5 minutes left there in the third period tie game. Could have been a real different story.
Yeah, that team was very unexpected. And like most of the teams we're talking about today, the 08 Phillies, I mean, they were supposed to be good, but to win the World Series, that 01 Sixers team, I mean, the way they got out of the gates and went all the way to the finals. Same with that Flyers team. I mean, they got in on the final day, and then the run through the playoffs down 3-0 against Boston. I mean, that was just the playoffs was a magical run. The regular season, very nondescript. And, since that time, Dave, how many playoff series have the Flyers won since that 09-10 season?
I think just the one. The last time they've made it past the second round was 2011,
That's
2012.
Right. Yep, yeah. Yes, indeed. So are we any closer to seeing even a playoff team with, this team? I know Hextall's got a lot of young players. You saw some of the prospects. You've been writing about guys like Sanheim, Phil Myers. I mean, it seems like they've got some younger pieces. Is this the year you think we'll start to see some of these guys crack the lineup?
They'll certainly crack the lineup. The question is how far they'll go into the playoffs and do they make the playoffs. For the last couple seasons, I think everybody else in the division has kind of improved, and the Flyers have kind of stayed on Ron Hextall's path there and not done anything drastic that would improve them short term. So here's where you're going to see at least those guys get into the lineup, and whether that means that they're going to take the next step immediately, I'm not so sure. I think they're probably what they were last year, a bubble team. And the same thing for Dave Hextall's first year. They were a bubble team. They got in the first time, didn't the second time. I think they'll be around that area again unless something weird happens. I mean, the Columbus Blue Jackets were getting all kinds of hype 2 years ago and were just god-awful and had so many injuries that played a part in it as well. But people were talking about them being the class of the division, and they were worst, I think, in the entire Eastern Conference. So things can definitely change. Injuries happen, stuff like that. But I think right now you're going to see probably 4 rookies on this team come the fall, 2 of them up front and 2 of them on the back line there with the defense.
Dave Isaac's with us at Dave G. Isaac on Twitter. You wrote about Sanheim. He's been with the prospect camp 4 years. Is this finally the year that you think he could crack his way onto the big club?
Yeah, I think there's probably 4 candidates for those 2 defense slots, probably Sanheim, Samuel Morin, Robert Haig, and Phil Myers, who has a little bit further to go because he didn't play in the American League like the other 3 did. I've gone back and forth on it. I thought that Morin and Haig had the best shot for a while, and now the more I think of it, I don't think either of those 2 guys are puck movers, so maybe they take one of the 2 of them and a puck mover, and Sanheim right now probably looks a little bit more likely than Phil Myers. But Phil Myers is a right-handed shot, and the Flyers only have one other of those on the defense with Radko Gudas. So I think that Travis Sanheim has a really good shot come September.
How about the guy you wrote about, Scott Lawton, signed yesterday? And, he's a guy that spent some time up here, but obviously things didn't go his way. He got sent back down. And then last year, 19 goals, 39 points in the AHL. Is this the year that Lawton gets the full-time nod and we see him get regular ice time?
Yeah, he's certainly going to get every opportunity to. I mean, just even before the contract, just the way that Ron Hextall had been talking about him for the last probably month plus. Only got into 2 games with the Flyers last season, played most of the time with the Lehigh Valley Phantoms, but Hextall sent him down there and gave pretty strict orders to make him be a penalty killer. Don't put him in a high-scoring role, have him be a shutdown guy, because they were grooming him basically to be what he's trying to go for in the fall, which is fourth-line center. And then when you take into the business side into account, it's kind of Scott Lawton versus Mike Vecchione. Vecchione doesn't have to go through waivers to get sent down, and Lawton would, and I don't know that he would clear. The Flyers obviously don't think so, because they protected him and let Pierre-Edouard Bellemare out there. So I think right now you'd probably say that Lawton has the upper hand in that battle, and there will be a few come the fall.
Yeah, and I know that development camp, a lot of guys there. Was there 40 guys? Any of the guys you saw, surprise, stand out? I mean, guys to keep an eye on now?
Well, the one guy technically isn't their property yet, and I didn't know much about him. Ivan Kosarenkov went undrafted, and pretty much immediately after the draft, he said that his agent reached out to him and said that the Flyers had invited him to development camp, and he's a really not huge in stature, but a really heavy winger that's got a ridiculous shot. I mean, he lit up, I think it was Felix Sandstrom yesterday, just went far down on him, sniped it top right corner, and everybody in the building was oohing and eyeing. And it's only a 3-on-3 development camp tournament, and it's in July, so not a whole lot to read into there. But I think he's a guy that maybe could at least earn a spot in camp in the fall and a contract maybe down the road. A lot of these guys are really kind of far away. Oscar Lindblom is the forward that was in camp that has the best shot of me being on this roster in the fall, and I've been on your show a couple times, Mike, saying that I think Oscar Lindblom will be there day one of the regular season. So I would say that he's probably the guy to keep your eye on in September.
Dave Isaac with us, looking at the Flyers, their development camps in the books, and 2 guys, goaltending and Flyers, that conversation is usually a murky one, but they've got a couple of guys you wrote about, Hart and Sandstrom. Kind of give us the timeline of where you think the Flyers goalie situation will kind of evolve over the next couple of seasons and how you see it playing out. We know, obviously, Noivy and Brian Elliott will be in there this year, possibly next, but how do you map out the Flyers goaltending scenario over the next couple?
Yeah, I think both Hart and Sandstrom will probably go pro in 2 years, or at least next season, not this upcoming fall, but the one after that. At least that's the case for Sandstrom. He's going back to Sweden. He already signed a 1-year extension there. Carter Hart was named the best goalie in Canadian juniors 2 years ago, had better numbers this year, and they didn't give him the title again. I guess just politically they didn't feel good about doing that, but his numbers were better. He improved. So even if he came in and blew the doors off in training camp, I think that Ron Hextall would send him back just because he's got that cushion there of the 2 veteran guys, and obviously doesn't want to rush these young guys, and he's still 19 years old. So I don't know which one it's going to be. That's going to be their goalie of the future, and maybe it'll end up being both. I mean, I asked Ron Hextall that the other day. He wants to do a platoon now. Will he do that when both of these guys show that they're ready, if they're both ready at the same time? And he said the goalies will dictate that, how strong they play. So it may be both of them. It may be one of them, but I don't think we'll see either one this season, possibly next season.
Dave, you just posted a story about the big prospects on the wing, and it's something the Flyers were not the last couple of years. They were not big guys. It's a small team, but you think they could be a much more physical force down the road?
Certainly. Wade Allison is a guy who they selected in the second round last year, and he went to Western Michigan. Those guys that take the NCAA route tend to take a little bit longer because most of them stay in school all 4 years. Shane Gostisbehere was an exception. He came out before his senior season. James Van Riemsdyk came out after his sophomore year, if memory serves. So I don't think that Allison is quite on that path just yet in terms of coming out early. Maybe if he has a big sophomore season, a big junior season, that ends up being the case for him. He's 6'2", about 204. Isaac Radcliffe, 6'5". Matthew Strome, 6'3". So these guys are going to have some power forwards.
He's a guy you like too, right? Radcliffe, you watch a lot of him in the camp?
Radcliffe probably looks like, as I wrote, probably on the quickest route to the NHL of the three, just because he doesn't have the whole NCAA thing. And I think that his skills are there. You know that the Flyers always talk about guys that can play both offensively and defensively. And for a big guy, Radcliffe skates really well and is really defensively aware. And for a guy his size, has really good hands in close, too, making moves around the opposing net. I think he's going to be a real fun player to watch in the next couple of years. You know, the World Junior Tournament that happens around Christmas time, I think he'll probably be in there for Team Canada, I would imagine. I mean, that's the kind of player that you certainly want on your team in a tournament situation like that. He's definitely one of the more exciting ones to watch, but he's not going to be here this season or probably next season, maybe the one after that.
He's Dave Isaac at Dave G. Isaac on Twitter. Check out all his Flyers stuff as the prospect camp winds down and the trial on the Isle today down there in Stone Harbor. Dave, always appreciate it, pal.
All right, Mike. Thanks for having me.